Welcome back. All right, the spotlight today goes on to the Colorado Avalanche. The Colorado Avalanche off to an amazing start to the season. One regulation loss in 20 games, so it's definitely worthy of a discussion. This is a team that has played really, really well right out of the gate. 14-1-5 this year, and I wanted to compare it to their previous 4 seasons. Last year, through 20 games, they were 11-9. They ended up with 102 points. They lost in the first round against Dallas. The previous year, they started 14-6. So very similar to the record they have now, except they have 5 losses in extra time and 1 loss in regulation. 107 points that season. They lost in the second round against Dallas that year. 2022-2023, they were 12-7-1. They lost in the first round against Seattle after a 109-point season. And of course, 21-22, they were 12-7-1. They finished with 119 points and won the Stanley Cup. So the team that they have this year is on pace for, 135, 140 points, something ridiculous. I don't think they get there. Every team goes through their struggle at some point in time. It'll happen. But these players, so far, we really haven't seen it. So I wanted to compare the October and November numbers for these Colorado players. Some of them have got better after a pretty good October. A good example would be Nathan MacKinnon. 12 games in October, 9 goals, 9 assists, 18 points. He has equaled the 18 points in November in 8 games. 7 goals, 11 assists for 18 points in 8 games this month. Absolutely ridiculous numbers for MacKinnon. For Makar, last month, 12 games, 4 goals, 13 assists, 17 points. This month, so far, 8 games, 4 goals, 7 assists for 11 points. So, consistent numbers for Cale Makar, who looks like he's ready to just go get another Norris trophy, and we can have a debate on that another time, but I don't see how Makar doesn't win the Norris. And if Colorado keeps this up, I don't see how MacKinnon doesn't win the Hart. Natchez, 12 games, 8 goals, 8 assists, 16 points in October. This month, thus far, 8 games, 5 goals, 7 assists, 12 points. So, no drop-off from Natchez after he signed the extension with Colorado. Good on him. Lehkonen continues to be a very solid performer as well. 12 games last month, 4 goals, 7 assists, 11 points. This month, 8 games, 3 goals, 4 assists, 7 points. Olofsson seems to be enjoying himself in Colorado. 12 games last month, 3 goals, 7 assists, 10 points. This month, 8 games, 3 goals, 2 assists for 5 points. Valeri Nichushkin, 12 games last month, 5 goals, 3 assists, 8 points. This month, 5 games and 4 assists. And what's interesting is, Nichushkin's playing all right, but I do think he can play better than he has when he's been in the lineup. I know he's injured right now, but I still feel like we haven't seen the best from him. Brent Burns seems to be adjusting really well in Colorado. 12 games last month, 1 goal, 5 assists, 6 points. This month, 4 assists in 8 games. Colton, 12 games, 1 goal, 4 assists, 5 points last month. This month, 8 games, 3 goals, 3 assists, 6 points. And then Nelson had a slower October, 12 games, 3 goals, 1 assist, 4 points. Then he has November, 8 games, 3 goals, 4 assists, 7 points for Brock Nelson. Devon Taves, 12 games last month, just the 2 assists. This month, so far, 8 games and 5 assists. So, just ridiculous that everybody's numbers seem to be getting better as we get into November than they were in October. So, the only loss this team has suffered in regulation was about a month ago. On October 25th, they lost in Boston 3-2, and that game was close. Then they have overtime losses against the Mammoth, the Devils, and the Sharks. It is interesting that 2 of those 3 teams are below the playoff line, but it happens. Shootout losses against Dallas and Carolina. So, Dallas and Carolina, really strong teams. I'll talk about them again when we get to the end of this. The goaltending has been very good, and Wedgwood has been 2 things: good, and they've done a good job of keeping his workload down. The shots against have not been anywhere near as high as they have been for some other teams, I guess we could say, but Wedgwood 7-1-2 in October, 900 save percentage. He's got better in November. He's 5-0 with a 939 save percentage. Minor played to an 0-0-2 record last month, 909 save percentage. This month, 2-0-1. But his save percentage dropped to 870. Then you've got Blackwood. Blackwood did not play in October. Let me just go ahead and grab his November numbers. No, I put the wrong numbers under the wrong spot. 2-0-1 record for Blackwood in November, 870 save percentage. That works. So either way, the goaltending has been good. Blackwood's numbers, not great, but he's coming back from injury, so that happens. And Wedgwood's playing well enough that Blackwood can take his time getting back up to where he normally is goaltending-wise. So as a team, 14-1-5, 13 of those wins in regulation. So in that first 60 minutes, they're very effective. They're very good at holding on to victories. They're scoring 4.2 goals per game and allowing 2.4 goals against per game. Their power play, 16.7%. That can come up a little bit. Their penalty kill's excellent at 85.9%. They're getting 33.8 shots per game, and they're allowing 25.7 shots per game. And it doesn't matter what period you're looking at with them. They're just very good. They're outscoring their opposition in the first, second, and third period. Not overtime. But in the first period, 23-19. Second period, 28-17. And in the third, a ridiculous 32-9. Then in overtime, they've been outscored 3-1. But overtime 3-on-3 hockey, you don't have that in the playoffs, so that's not really a big deal. One thing that I think is notable, and I do want to point this out, normally Colorado's dealing with a lot of big injuries. Right now, they're not. Any other season, they're normally dealing with a lot of injuries, and there's a lot of guys coming in and out of the lineup. Well, there have been, a couple of injuries. They've stayed relatively healthy. That's part of how they've been able to put this record together. Everybody's healthy. Everybody's got their chemistry. Everything's working really well. And that is unusual for a Colorado Avalanche team. It feels like every year Colorado, Pittsburgh, Minnesota are just decimated by injuries, and this year's been a little bit different. So if they lead after the first, you can almost turn the game off. They're 7-0-1 if they're leading after one. You can probably turn the game off if they're leading after two because they're 11-0. If they're trailing after two, keep watching. They're 1-1-2 if they're trailing after one, I should say. They're 1-1-2. If they're trailing after two, they're 0-1-4, which means that they've tied games and then lost in overtime, which they still get the point, right? So that's the thing now. It's all about point farming. It's very different. It's always weird to me when a team loses and the fan base is like, yeah, but, we got a point out of it. And I just look at that and go, it still feels like a loss, but that's me. Coach Bednar has done an amazing job since taking over in Colorado. 404 wins, 247 regulation losses, and 59 losses in extra time since 16-17. And it's noteworthy that in 16-17, they went 22-56-4. So that is included in those totals, which are very good, meaning that if you subtract that first season, his win-loss record's just absolutely ridiculous. So Coach Bednar's done a very good job with this team. And just this is a well-run organization from top to bottom. So their upcoming schedule doesn't look that difficult. And at some point, as I've said, they're going to lose a game against a team that we look at and go, they shouldn't have lost there. Happens to everybody. Today they're at Nashville. Tomorrow they're at Chicago. So those are two winnable games there. On Wednesday, they're at home against San Jose. Then on Friday, they're at Minnesota. Of those four upcoming games, that San Jose one should be absolutely fantastic. Then Saturday the 29th, so a week from the day I'm making this, they are at home against Montreal. Tuesday the 2nd of December, they're at home against Vancouver, who play them pretty tough when they play them. Then they go on the road for four. Starting with Thursday the 4th, they're at the New York Islanders. Then Saturday the 6th, they're at the New York Rangers. Sunday the 7th, they're at the Philadelphia Flyers. And Tuesday the 9th, they're at Nashville. There isn't a team in this upcoming 10-game stretch that you can look at and say, well, that's the team that's going to stop Colorado. That's the team that's going to beat them 5-0 or 6-2. I don't think it's capable of happening. The one thing that I've noticed recently too is that Colorado will have like a slow start. They might have kind of a first period where they're kind of dopey and they don't look as dangerous, and then all of a sudden they just turn it on. So the trick really is to have them down and not give them that spark and let them turn it on. So with all of this momentum and with so many wins and with clearly Colorado being a favorite to finish first in the West and very likely win the President's Trophy, what could stop them? So getting into what could stop them, well, the President's Trophy is going to get a lot of credit if they end up finishing first overall, right? Because if Colorado loses in the playoffs, that's where people go, President's Trophy, that's what it does. Although there's no guarantee they're winning the President's Trophy at this time. I do want to take a look at some records for the first couple months of the season and do some deep diving there at some point. But for this video, for what we're discussing here, I wanted to get into who could stop them and be realistic about it. And the first team that came to mind for me was Florida. Florida's going to get Tkachuk back. They're going to get Barkov back in time for the playoffs in all likelihood. And I would not be surprised if Florida goes on another run. And when they're dialed in, they're really scary. As much as Colorado's scary right now in this regular season, Florida can be a very scary team to watch. Dallas Dallas has stopped them the last 2 years. I think Dallas still is capable of doing so. I still think Ottinger is the better goaltender, whether Colorado has Blackwood as the starter going to the playoffs or Wedgwood. I would lean towards Ottinger in that matchup. I think the rest of the Avs really scare me, though, in terms of that forward group and that defense. Dallas, though, has a lot of good offense and defense, too. I think if they clash again in the playoffs, it's going to be absolutely fantastic. Vegas. Vegas is a team that it's in a similar position. They've got Stone out of the lineup, which has seriously affected their attack. But they're starting to get things rolling a little bit again. They're close to first in the division, and in a playoff series between Colorado and Vegas, I do think Vegas can pull off, if it would be seen as an upset over Colorado. The Vegas Golden Knights won the Stanley Cup in 2023, and I don't think they're that far off from being a team that could win it again. They are my cup pick for this year, and I don't change that until the playoffs if I need to. Carolina. I think Carolina will play them tough if they meet them in the final. The Natchez storyline there with Carolina would be interesting as well. I do think Carolina, if they make it all the way to the Stanley Cup final, are going to be very difficult. I do wonder how that goaltending matchup would work. So right now it'd be Wedgwood likely against, would it be Kochetkov? Would it be Anderson? That's where things get interesting for me as in net. But I do think Carolina, and this is just who could, not who will. So who could, these teams could. And I have Colorado on the board. Why would I have Colorado on the board? Because there are times over the last few years, first against Seattle and then the last 2 times against Dallas, where it's kind of felt like Colorado beat themselves. Where I have been, as a fan of the Dallas Stars, grateful that Colorado, if it's a boneheaded turnover or just something that happens in game that turns the momentum. And I think, if Colorado hadn't have done that, and there are times where in the playoffs over the last 3 years, I felt like Colorado was beating themselves because this team has been very talented, very deep team, confident team, and they've not had that luck in the playoffs the last 3 years. But they did win the Cup in 2022. I would not be surprised if they won it in 2026, but it is difficult to make that call, especially considering that whole President's Trophy thing. One team that's come to mind for me recently, obviously last year, Winnipeg got off to a ridiculous start. 2022, 2023, Boston got off to that absolutely insane start to the season. So we've seen crazy starts to the season before, not necessarily one regulation loss in 20 games, thus the video. But it is a matter of you've got to make sure you're peaking at the right time. And they need for their players to stay healthy, obviously, right? So when I talk about, going to a bit of a slump, if they were to lose McKinnon for a couple weeks, Makar for a couple weeks, that could lead to problems right there. Having a healthy lineup, having all the lines able to stay intact, having them all confident, having that chemistry, it's just deadly to the rest of the league. And we'll find out later today against Nashville whether or not a trap game exists for Colorado. Terminology I've started using a little bit now. It's late in the season for me to just start using it, but Colorado's in that position where they've won so many games and they've got such a cushion at the top. It would be understandable if they had sort of a down game and the intensity wasn't as strong as their opponent's intensity, but we'll see. Because we haven't seen that yet so far this year. Like I said, just the one loss in regulation, and that was almost a full month ago now. So are we going to see this team just lose one game in regulation every month? At what point in time will they start talking about the Montreal record? Montreal's record of least the lowest amount of losses in a season with 8. That is seen as unbreakable. That is one of those few unbreakable records that remain. Colorado right now is on pace to break that record. Can they? Will they? Well, we'll find out. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Hit like and subscribe in the event you may not have done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support. It's greatly appreciated. I will talk to you again soon.